T and XP acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Turrbal and Yagara people, and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging.
Welcome to T and XP, a couple's cozy gaming podcast.
We're feeling cozy, and we hope you are too.
I'm Alexander.
And I'm Erin.
T and XP is like a book club for cozy video games. And today, we're going to be looking at Wanderstop, a game that's all about tea.
Also, welcome to the last episode for Season 1. We're really pumped that we made it to 10 whole episodes, and we'll talk more about our ending of Season 1 at the end of the episode. Into the game. So, Wanderstop was developed by Ivy Road and published by Annapurna Interactive in 2025. It was a highly anticipated game for 2025 in the cozy gaming community. It was nominated for the Games for Impact category in the Game Awards 2025, which happened a few days ago. The music is by C418, who also did the music for Minecraft, and it was edited by Carla Zimonja, who helped guide the narrative towards a discussion of trauma. The writer and director of the game, Davey Reedon, is also known for the Stanley Parable and the Beginner's Guide. One of the creators of TV show Severance has actually said that the Stanley Parable was an influence on the show. Reedon has spoken repeatedly about the impact of fame and burnout on his creative process, and these ideas are seen very clearly in Wanderstop. He was also determined to have a game that had depth of narrative and characters, which we see especially in the two main characters. Tell us about the story.
Okay, so in Wanderstop, you'll play as Alter, a fierce and utterly relentless warrior who is, or rather was, the greatest fighter of her time. Through a vivid comic book style cutscene, we get a glimpse into everything Alter had to sacrifice to be the best, and the hard-won glory of her reign as undisputed, undefeated champion. We're then given a front-row seat to her precipitous fall. A shock defeat heralds the start of a crushing losing streak that leaves Alter second-guessing everything, not least of all herself.
You got to the bad bit before I could start singing the Pokemon theme song. Alter was the very best, like no one was before.
I'm glad we still got that in.
Yep, of course. It's really worth keeping in as well, yeah.
Rattled but undeterred, Alter doubles down and voyages to the forest at the end of the world, seeking guidance from the legendary Master Winters, only to collapse while traversing the forest paths. When she comes to, she finds herself at Wanderstop, a mythical tea shop set deep in the forest, and that's where the game itself begins.
I really like this little bit of exposition at the start. It works really well about setting us up really clearly about why you're going into the game. You know this character wants to fight but needs to rest. It's really clear from the outset, and I think it's a really helpful way of then bringing us into the Wanderstop glade.
Yeah. Once you're in the glade, you'll meet Borrow, the gentle giant and placid proprietor of Wanderstop. He'll gently coax Alter into taking a break under the guise of helping at the tea shop. From here, you will learn more about tea making, the mystical properties of the forest clearing, and the lingering malaise that prevents Alter from even lifting her sword, let alone resuming her journey. Like you foreshadowed, it's no great secret that Alter is suffering from burnout. Borrow himself is quick to identify the years of unforgiving perfectionism as a potential cause of fatigue. But even this is just the tip of the iceberg. It'll take time for Alter to reflect on past events, and even then, the various customers are all bringing their own baggage to work through. Sometimes they'll offer a fresh perspective for Alter to reflect on, while other times, she'll see her own flaws mirrored and playing out in the customers. These customers might be little side stories in Alter's narrative, but they'll still bring their own measure of heartbreak, humour, and humanity to Wanderstop's tale.
And I think from what you've just said as well, it's very clear that there is nothing relevant to a modern person listening to this story about burnout or pushing yourself or perfectionism. It is a completely unrelatable game, and no one will see any qualities of themselves in this game. I certainly didn't.
I noticed how little you identified with any aspect in this game.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I was like, I just want to make tea.
You're like, no, it's different. I'm a healthy type A. I'm not like other type A's.
How dare you?
Why don't you tell us a bit about the gameplay?
Yeah. Wanderstop is a third-person, narratively driven management game. It's a game about little rituals, from planting and pruning gardens to operating the enormous elaborate tea machine in the heart of the shop. We've covered a few management games this season, and they can look really diverse. Stardew Valley and Dinkum have you managing a farm and building community. Dave the Diver has you managing a restaurant. And there are lots of cozy games out there that have you managing a cafe or tea shop. What sets Wanderstop apart from many of these games is the dedication to character growth. This isn't a management game with some character development built in. This is a narrative that uses the management genre as a tool to explore and develop Alta during the biggest life challenge. As Alta, you'll be planting, cultivating and brewing teas, and each step has its own little rituals, but you'll also need to take frequent foraging walks to gather tea leaves and mushrooms. There is zero combat in this game. You'll play as a warrior, and Alta will show off some sword moves with the broom, but this is a tale about a warrior where you'll never actually fight. Borrow teaches you how to collect and dry tea and how to grow plants that add flavour and special properties to the tea. Plant growing is based on planting 3 seeds in a row or a triangle pattern to make a bigger plant. Tea making is really beautiful. There's a big machine in the middle of the room and you add water, you use the bellows, you send water to the pot, you add in your tea and your different herbal ingredients and then you pour it out at the bottom. And this is not a part of the game mechanics, but you can choose which mug to serve the tea in, and dirty mugs go in an elaborate and gorgeous dishwasher to be washed, sterilised and placed out the back. It's really cute.
I just want to jump in here and circle back to more about the tea making, not just because I'm British, but because it's...
British?
Yeah!
Are you British? I never noticed.
I know, you're finding out new things about me in this final episode.
I will, yes. I'll have to get you in a white shirt and get you to walk out of lake for me. Please.
That's a Pride and Prejudice reference, everyone.
Sorry, anyway, go on.
Yes, tea making. It's a really integral part of the game, as you may have guessed. In addition to the tea leaves and water, you'll typically add a fruit to augment the flavour and introduce a mild side effect, like Erin mentioned. Some of these effects are medicinal, like caffeination or pain relief, while others will elicit a specific emotion or memory. And when I say specific, I mean like recall your favourite childhood breakfast, levels of specific. Making a tea and finding a suitably cosy spot to sit and drink it allows you to delve deeper into Alta's backstory and treats you to a fully voice-acted reflection.
You'll also serve tea to the customers, of course. You can record plant findings and tea combinations in your journal, which will help you match their taste and qualities to the customer's request, though not every customer really knows what they want, so sometimes you'll need to extrapolate or improvise. There are gardening and tea books that you'll be able to collect and read, although the writer of the gardening book is a bit unhinged. You can read all of them, it's good fun.
Yeah, Wanderstop's tea shop actually features a small library that'll have everything from guides on economics and gardening to the latest action-packed installment of Dirk Warhard.
Dirk Warhard.
So these books are all unhinged, so let's not pick on the gardening one.
True, but you can read them in full and they are each not fully realised because they're not novel length, but you get a whole story out of each of them.
Yeah,
it's
you all
really
go on
cute.
a journey reading some of these books.
Some Dirk Warhard. I think Dirk Warhard is supposed to be sort of like a Jason Bourne kind of character. It's good fun.
It's amazing. Do check them out.
You'll also need to care for the garden surrounding the tea shop. To do this, you borrow a watering can, a broom and shears to help grow plants and keep the tea shop clearing tidy. Doing this also helps you find lost items and mugs, which get lost at a surprising rate. Lost items can then be displayed on the shelves around the shop.
On that note, you'll also want to pay attention to the flock of puffins, large penguin-like birds that inhabit a forest clearing and also steal unattended tea. They can rack up quite the mug collection if you don't wrangle them now and then, as I found out.
Yes, and if they drink tea, they will become the colour of that tea, so you can turn your puffin collection into different colours as well.
Wanderstop has quite a few accessibility features. These range from easy ones like subtitle size to dyslexic font, several colorblind options, and even motion sickness support. That's the 3 little dots you get there, just so you don't get sick every time the camera swings around.
Yeah.
You can also turn off button mashing to operate the tea boiler, and change inventory access to be a toggle, so you don't have to hold down buttons. You can also remap the controller, and the game does recommend you use controllers. The keyboard controls are pretty terrible, so I would also recommend use a controller.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a controller's become our preference these days anyway.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's actually got quite a few accessibility features compared to some games we've looked at. Why don't you start us off with talking about some of the characters in this game?
Well, I'll take the easy option first, and that's going to be Alta, the player character. Like we discussed, you find out pretty quickly that she's a determined, disciplined perfectionist who is, to put it very mildly, taking her recent string of losses quite badly.
Yeah, she has flashbacks, she has big heightened emotions and outbursts, and there's really good storytelling about how she gets into this space as well, the pressure she puts on herself and the training and everything like that as well.
One thing I really liked is when you have the tea and you do get those kind of moments of reflection and introspection, it's not just this big info dump, it's not, oh, this happened in my history. Like, it's quite insightful and quite reflective.
If you do choose to leave as Alta out of the glade, you always end up back in the glade. And every time she gets up from that darn bench, she just looks like she's done leg day, though. She does not want to be back in the glade. She is tired. She is so broken, but she must make tea.
But I really like a lot of the animations they give her. Like, just between Alta's, the voice acting, her appearance, and the animations, you don't forget that you're playing as this hardened warrior. I think we mentioned you got some pretty good moves when you were mashing the sweep button.
Yes.
She starts using the broom like a sword.
Aggressive sweeping, yes.
But even just like the sprinting motions and stuff like that. Like I said, you don't forget that she's a warrior first and foremost, and she's kind of stuck having to recuperate.
Yeah, and she's complex. She's not this warrior that's made in a vacuum. They talk about her childhood, and it's just so much more interesting than stock standard warrior fighter kind of prototype.
Yeah, and so you get a bit of insight into her, sounds like quite tense relationship with her parents, but also her values and how those conflicted and what she's given up.
Yeah, I like that. I also really like Borrow. I think he's a really clever character disguised as a really simple character as well.
Everyone likes Borrow.
Yeah, well, yes. Yeah, if you don't like Borrow, you don't have a heart. But I said you have this big, physically big but big-hearted character as well. And he's very gentle, but he's not a pushover, which is important because Alta is such a strong character. He is a really great foil for Alta's speed and hastiness, but he can be a little sassy and but purposeful as well. He's not just this automatic do what you want character. He's not just there as a sage. He frequently says, I don't know about that. Let's find out together. Like, I really like that.
Yeah, and it's what you said. I like that he's just got a little bit of sass, that he's not just this kind of big old teddy bear, that he does still have his own thoughts, opinions, and kind of very gentle but incisive critique.
Yes, he really says some comments that Alta needs to hear at that moment in time, even though she hears it, but I'm not sure if she listens to it.
Yeah. Alta and Borrow are undoubtedly the two main characters, but I still just want to mention the various customers that come through, because some of them have really lovely side stories.
Yeah.
Some of them are quite sad, if still beautiful, and I think an early example of that is, I think he might even be one of the first customers you get, Gerald.
Yeah, the cursed knight.
Yes, so he's a knight who's kind of setting out on a quest to try and impress his son.
Yeah.
And the moment this guy comes through the door, you can see that something's a bit off with him because his boot is very heavily cursed. It's got just purple smoke billowing off of it.
Just walk it off.
Yep, and then he mentions casually that, he did encounter a witch and he might have tripped over her cursed sword and she shouted at him, but, he's not bothered about it.
It's so good, yeah. But it's interesting that he's a very lovely, cute character, but where Alta is at that moment in the story, which is the start, she scoffs at him, and it's really hard for her to empathize with him or treat him with much respect. She's really dismissive of him and his problems.
Yeah, well, you mentioned once or twice, you can go up to Borrow and ask whether you can help or whatnot, but I think it's just interesting to see how it's kind of reflected in this guy, that she's willing to acknowledge in someone else that, if there's this big flaming symptom, you need to get it looked at.
Yes.
But she doesn't acknowledge that in herself.
Yes. And that really reflects, so all the NPCs have something to tell her, either through their action or their lack of action or something happening with them. And I just think that's really cool.
Yeah. And you know what, Gerald? I liked those photos.
I liked all these cute photos of him and his son not appreciating him. Justice for Gerald. Who else did you like? Out of those NPCs, who really struck you as interesting?
Look, there's a lot of great characters here. I think Nana's also a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So Nana is a very economically minded merchant who sets up next to the tea shop with the ambition of bankrupting you.
She's cantankerous menace.
She is, but she's also really lovely in her own way, and she kind of hates that she's being lovely but can't help herself.
Yes, she's really cute. I also really like Ren. I think he's a really important character in this because there's quite a few characters that sort of come and go, but Ren is one that is really critical in showing an alternative way of being if you don't check yourself as well. You know, he adores her and thinks she's really cool, but at the same time, he doesn't understand her illness of burnout as well. And I just think he's really interesting.
I thought Ren was a really interesting character. I like that he kind of has this reflection of Alta as well. That you just see Alta and she's berating herself for being like this has-been and this loser, and he comes in and he's like, oh my god, it's Alta, you're a legendary fighter, you're this big inspiration. And he doesn't even acknowledge her defeats, he just sees this incredible fighter and wants to spar with her and wants to train with her.
Yeah.
But, like you said, he also shares a lot of the same flaws, that he can't identify burnout. And while he says that rest is important and that he's, at this tea shop to rest a bit and recover his strength and then go on to the next session of his training, he can't really see what's wrong with Alta and he just cannot get his head around it.
And for the first time, Alta actually has to defend her situation.
She needs to set some boundaries,
yes. Yeah, it's very cool.
This wouldn't be a cozy game without some really lovely visuals as well. It's not just about the storytelling. We mentioned before that there's some great comic book style cutscenes, but the actual in-game graphics themselves are also lovely. So when you work between chapters in the game, the tea shop will subtly change. And so you'll start with this really bright spring palette, and then you'll move on to an autumn palette, and there'll even be this really kind of desolate, foggy level at one point when the Alta hits a bit of a low point.
There were 3 colours in particular that stuck out to me a lot. There was lots of really beautiful pinks and oranges and purples, apart from the fog scene, of course, which really featured grey. But I just really liked the use of these. They were just used in this way to paint the glade not simply as foresty, but as magical and mystical. And it just really made the tea shop in the centre of the glade like stand out and look really lovely. I liked it.
I also just love the design of the tea shop and, just the little decorations and gardens around it. That it's very whimsical, very cozy.
Yeah, if you do like the ability to do some decorating, you do have this in this game.
Yeah.
So you can stop and instead of making tea for a while, you can stop and put up pictures and you can decorate and sweep and things like that. It's very charming.
Yeah, and when you do make tea as Alta and you're trying to find a spot to drink, you get these lovely little camera sweeps which will then focus on the certain points so you can admire the scenery. And it's a tough call deciding where to sit down and have your little tea.
Visually, one of the things that really struck me was the use of the weeds and the idea that the weeds are in every level, but when you get to the fog level, they're everywhere and they are spreading like weeds and you can't cut them down in time and, you're desperately trying to clear up this glade and you can't. And it is just such a beautiful metaphor for this like futility, and she does start trying and she does try and start cleaning it up and she can't yet. She's still not ready, even though she is trying so hard to fix things and everything. And it's just beautiful about that complexity of burnout. It's not just like burnout equals rest, then you're better. Like the idea that there are setbacks and there are still dark moments to come and things like that. It's very complex. I really liked that use.
Yeah. It's not just about the graphics themselves, though. It's about the design and architecture and just the thought that they put into making this wonderful little glade and tea shop.
Yeah, definitely. Segue. There is some really lovely music in Wanderstop. The same composer who did Minecraft, as we mentioned before, was the person who did the music in this. And it is a really nice, there's restful, lovely music. It suits the scenes. It changes subtly each level. You do have some control over it via the jukebox, but the jukebox is interesting insofar as you can change the music, but it might not stay there. So sometimes you'll make this choice and it will end up coming undone. And you'll know when the music comes undone as well. But it is, gentle and appropriate, and it's just good music that enhances it as well. And while we're talking about audio devices, I think it is really worth mentioning Alta's voice acting.
Yeah, okay, so the voice acting is great, but you only get it for Alta and you only get it for some of her lines.
Yeah, about 2/3 of her scenarios you get it.
Yeah, so I think you'll get it when you're drinking tea and having the reflections.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll get it in cutscenes. It'll just be the voice of like an alter ego as she's kind of having this internal dilemma or argument.
Yeah, and no other characters get voice acting, but Alta haven't looked it up, sorry, but to the person who ended up doing her lines, it was really lovely. So, Alex, tell me a bit about some of the big ideas in Wanderstop.
Okay, so burnout's an easy one, so I'm not going to start with it.
Okay.
I'm actually going to talk about obsession and ambition.
Ooh, I love it. It sounds like we're talking about Macbeth or something.
Exactly. It's a classic literary theme, and Wanderstop actually really does it justice by looking at this darker side of it and this self-destructive element there. So Alta is fixated on being the best fighter ever and then staying the best fighter ever. Which I think's interesting because in the game's setting, it's not even fighting for like a noble cause or anything like that. This is just like arena fighting in front of an audience.
Yeah, I noticed that too as well. Yeah. So she calls herself a warrior, but she's more of a fighter in that sense.
Yeah, as far as we can tell from the setting, it's really more like a gladiator than anything else.
I think this unhealthy obsession, though, I know this unhealthy obsession is what leads to her burnout. Like, everyone can tell that really quickly, but just the way that it manifests is so realistic to real burnout in the sense of, her not being able to do physical tasks that she can't do, she can't choose to rest or not rest, she has to rest. Anytime she tries to leave or anything like that, it goes about as well as we've explained as well. And that even when Ren offers like another possible outcome to her and saying, maybe we could go find a solution, we could go do this and everything like that, it is not helpful. Like the only way to do it and to fix it is to get through it. And to get through it, she has to experience it and face it. And I just think I think it's really good. There's so many games that have the magic potion and the fix and the puzzle, and you do that and you're fine. And it is not as straightforward in Wanderstop because, of course, the whole point is a narrative about a person suffering from burnout. I think that's really cool.
But what I like about how they've handled it is the narrative isn't, the diagnosis. It's burnout. They spell it out for you really early.
Yeah.
But it's about the healing process, and it's about having to go through and work out what's caused it and how she's going to get through it. And so I think they've kind of started the narrative at a really good spot in that regard. Yeah,
absolutely. And I really like how, you see her resting and she goes back to Borrow and she's like, what can I do now? And he's like, do what you want. Go and drink some more tea. Go and make some plants. Go and talk to someone if they're available. And most of the time, if you go to Borrow and say, what should I do next? Which is a really standard video game feature, going to a character and asking for guidance, he will say, figure it out.
Yeah, so I think he phrases it more gently than that. He says you can do some gardening, you can make some tea, but he points out that sometimes the act of doing nothing is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And that's like a weird concept to have in a video game. Without descending into too many spoilers, I do really like how they handled this message of ambition and obsession and pride. That you see the very dark side of it early on in the game, but towards the end, there's almost a redemptive value to it.
Yes, yeah, but not without some really scary stuff on the way for her, as she unlocks exactly how she got where she is, it is horrible, some of the stuff that she's done and that she's gone through and everything, and you find out there's so many depths to what's happened to her that, it makes that bit of redemption at the end really important.
Yeah.
So on that note then, I think Wanderstop is a very special game, but I also think it's an important game to point out the irony in cozy gaming. And what I mean by that is, well, when Wanderstop hadn't come out yet, it was so hyped. People online loved talking about this new game that will be about tea, and you can't get any cozier than tea. And then it came out. And then people moved on to the next game. And of course, finding and recommending games is a helpful and important part of the cozy gaming community online, but sometimes it feels a bit hollow that we have access to these beautiful games that can influence and change us. And then in our find the next thing culture, we don't take time to collectively or personally reflect and revel in the wonder of games like Wanderstop. Wanderstop really reminded me of why we made this podcast, to slow down and smell the roses and the tea and enjoy the characters. And just as we do for books via tens of thousands of book clubs around the world, to appreciate these texts and enjoy them together.
Yeah, I think part of it is because maybe people weren't sure what they were getting into with Wanderstop. If you were expecting a shop management game and you got this beautiful narrative, I can see how it might not have hit the right notes with you. But I still think it's such a shame because this is a great cozy game that really epitomizes the genre, and it's a fantastic story. And it's what you said, that if you look at a lot of the social media stuff for cozy gaming, it's just about hyping the next release or the next early release. And it just sometimes feels like a bit of a treadmill towards looking forward to the next game and never actually just appreciating the ones we already have.
Yeah, the here and now. It's important.
As Wanderstop has taught us.
Yes, absolutely. If you don't know it already, you got to learn it from Alta.
So we've been talking about the kind of intersection between in-game coziness and real-world coziness, so why don't we start talking about the game's cozy rating?
Yeah, okay. So I think that it can't be a 5 because of the darker themes. If we compare it to Night in the Woods, which we gave a 3 for cozy rating, in Wanderstop, I felt the part of the game setup was always that everything was going to be all right. I think this makes it a little higher on the cozy scale than Night in the Woods, and although both have dark themes, Wanderstops are less gritty. There is a cutscene with some blood in it and an act of violence, but due to the comic strip style animation of the cutscenes, the impact is more emotional than visual. It was shocking, but not gory. I propose that we give this a 4 out of 5 on the cozy scale.
Yeah, I agree. This is an incredibly cozy game. I mean, it's about making tea and drinking tea and healing, and I think it kind of demonstrates really nicely how sometimes the cozy genre is about giving you a safe space to explore a darker theme.
Yeah. I actually remember you talking about that quite early on, like maybe in episode 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Wanderstop does a beautiful job of that. Some of the themes are a little darker, but that's by intent, and it's like you said, it's about healing and you know everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful game. I would agree with a 4 out of 5.
Lovely. So, game ratings.
Yes, game rating. I loved playing this. This was relaxing. This was soothing. It was this great story about healing and taking your time. That said, I would have loved it if there was just a tiny bit more content to the game. I mentioned in the previous episode, Dodonia, that a game doesn't need to be long to be good, but it does need to be complete. And I think sometimes Wanderstop doesn't quite get there. I would have just loved one more chapter or slightly more closure on some of the customers and side characters. Even just maybe a little bit more shop management.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. And it's funny because I don't disagree with you, but I kind of thought the pacing was really clever. The idea that it had to be interesting enough for a person like Alta, for example, who is in the space that they're in to have enough to keep them busy, but gentle enough to heal them as well. I thought they sort of struck a good balance with that, and that it didn't feel boring or light on in that regard. But you mentioned earlier, and I agree as well, it could have benefited from all or none in terms of the voice acting.
Yeah.
My preference would be all because I loved Alta's voice acting and I would want to hear more like it. It was really good.
Yeah, I think it's a credit to the voice actor that it leaves you wanting more. But, I still wanted more.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think from a narrative perspective, I agree that the pacing was fantastic. But just from a gameplay perspective, I would have loved a little bit more meat on the bones and just a little bit more content and stuff to do. So, there's nothing stopping you from playing indefinitely at the end of a given chapter, but the way the game's structured, it kind of gives you a few cues that it's time to leave. And for me, it just feels like the way they present it, like they're just putting the chairs on tables and staring expectantly at you.
Closing time.
For the game rating itself, this is one of those situations where I really lament us saying we were not going to do half scores. It feels like a 3 out of 5, especially when we compare it to the other games you've given that rating to, which are all still lovely. But this game has just got such a great message and such an important message for cozy gamers. I would have no hesitations bumping it up to a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it is a 4 out of 5 because even though I totally respect your critique of some of those points, I think when you put them on balance against, the notion of a good game and against other games, I think it's those points that you mentioned are not that bad or anything like that. I still think it's a well-developed, great game. I agree that it has a really great message, maybe not just for cozy gamers, for anyone playing this game. I think it's important. I do think it's a 4 out of 5 as well.
If we're going with the tier system, I would give this a B. But again, it's really tough deciding between an A or B here. What do you reckon?
I agree. Let's give it a B. Before we go on today, we want to thank you for listening to one or all episodes of TNXP, a couple's cozy gaming podcast. In light of making our Wanderstop episode, we want to let you know that next year our podcast will be fortnightly, which we think better reflects the pace and values we want to have in a podcast about cozy gaming and help us manage our busy lives.
That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to T&XP, a couple's cozy gaming podcast. We'd like to encourage you to follow our Instagram account, which you can find at T&XP Podcast. And if you like listening to us, then rating, reviewing, and following on your listening platform or Instagram and YouTube are really helpful in ensuring like-minded people find us. Also, in keeping with Wanderstop's message, we'll be taking a small break between seasons and we'll be back in January, but look out for bonus mini-episodes in the meantime. We hope you'll then join us in the new year when we kick off Season 2 with Letters to Avala, where you play as a curvy, mail-delivering turnip. Until then, stay cozy.
Like a magical tea house that appears at just the right time.